Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder, to the first day of the new major update, Alpha Strike. And this is mid-March 2024, and Alpha Strike it really is when it comes to especially naval forces. It's not some of the new content in terms of ships that I want to show you, but rather this in the change logs, which you will find the link to in the video description down below. There is naval fleet model, damage model, characteristics and weaponry changes. Naval weaponry, and this is the section that I'll read out for you. The number of shell fragments from ship guns have been increased. Previously, due to technical limitations, the number of fragments that a projectile was capable of producing was lower than it should have been. This was compensated by an increase in destructive power of some fragments in the nose and side dispersion cones. And that kind of summarizes the experience. It was really like throwing the dice whenever you fired an HE shell. You could do spectacular damage, but most of the time it was underwhelming. And here is something, a really old dev block from the Battle Pass reward the Destroyer 1936A, the Z25. And I remember vividly when this was announced that there was around that time, and that was February 2021, so almost exactly 3 years ago, that Gaijin changed the damage models. And I have some old footage prior to this that I want to show you in comparison, because the effectiveness of HE shells not just has returned, Gaijin has overdone it. And yeah, this was the beginning of the SAP meta. SAP is still really strong. I also think that AP rounds have become stronger. So every ship is kind of weaker in its term of survivability, but stronger in its firepower. And when previously we had it more like Shermans with the 105 firing at each other, now we basically have Whirlwinds on Hellcat chassis fighting each other. That is the TLDR. And you know, without further ado, let's have a look at some gameplay, shall we? So here we are, and the footage just shows you how drastic the effectiveness of guns has been increased. The first footage is from the Dugantois, the French premium cruiser, which when I reviewed it the last time, I was not really excited about its DPM or effectiveness. It was alright, but in a direct confrontation it would kind of struggle. Now, don't be scared by the SL income, because I have activated some really big boosters. Now it actually is highly effective, especially versus destroyers or other light cruisers with those guns. Almost like it should be. It feels just better. It's certainly more fun, but also you die yourself really quickly to both HE and SAP. And that is also kind of a bit of a problem, because positioning becomes more and more important. Where you spawn becomes more and more important. That you delay your initial spawn by like a minute, that you're not the first one to get targeted, is also now becoming more and more important. And a bit of a dirty little secret of mine, how to win on certain maps. And especially now, it feels like when every shell does great damage, then DPM has become a significant factor. And so the DPM machines in shells per minute now have become more important again. Like the USS Atlanta, which we'll see in the next scene, and also USS Helena, you know, the armored light cruiser with 15 guns and also really high ammunition. Now, I have to admit, I haven't played battleships so far, so I can only speculate, and I don't do this today. So I'll wait for tomorrow when I get the IGN Mutsu and maybe also play some other battleships today, when coming home after the gym, after a long working day, there is just so much I could play today. 3 to 4 battles before I had to make the video, otherwise I would have fallen asleep. So this is a real game changer. The effectiveness has become insane. I think that, to be honest, Gaijin has overdone it, and as you see with this footage, going bow-in is no longer a viable defensive strategy to delay your inevitable doom. And this is, yeah, interesting. And when coming back to the high DPM ships, to have also good gun handling becomes more and more important, because now the shells actually do damage, knock out a gun emplacement, starts fire, and reduce the crew. So you can just gun down somebody before they can train their guns on you. And while this is a certain step to the high tier Call of Duty tank gameplay that I criticized over the years, for naval forces we needed a little bit of a change of pace, we needed an increase of effectiveness, but again I think Gaijin overdid it. And here I have footage from over 3 years ago in the USS Cowell, and it shows you also the effectiveness of the 5-inch 38 HE shell versus, you know, low tier destroyers and maybe some patrol boats. But again, a few single hits do the job, and they do tremendous amounts of damage. The big difference here from this very old meta to the new meta is now, from what I've seen on the hit cams, anti-fragmentation armor is no longer, you know, the magic shield that it used to be for such a long time. And it's not just the HE's effectiveness that has been drastically increased, it also seems like the AP now does great damage. Now this is interesting, since when you strike a critical compartment, especially the ammo stowage or the magazine, a ship would blow up, regardless of what you hit it with once you penetrated the armor. But now the what I call meat hits become significantly more effective. What I mean by this is that if you can't hit the magazine because it's too well protected, the ship is just angled in an unfortunate angle from your perspective, or it just simply is so much below the waterline that your shells just bounce off the deck armor, even at range. And now the machinery hits just will mean more on big ships like cruisers, and so that brings again potentially a new meta. Again, I have to further test it. Maybe Gaijin will also tweak a little bit the damage effect, but what Gaijin said about the amount of fragments, yes, I can see it in the hit cam. Yes, it is kind of true what they said, but when it comes to the sheer damage output, as you can see in this old footage, this is strikingly similar in a way. There are some subtle differences, like the anti-fragmentation armor, but to be honest, it's just such a long overdue change, and then it's still kind of not well thought through. Because the way that I see it is that it will be a return to the awful old days, in terms of that just a handful of ships actually mean something. But there is actually one good thing, and it is a benefit for, out of all the nations, the Japanese destroyers, because all of a sudden it doesn't matter so much that they have no AP or SAP. Now they actually can work. And for all other nations, it will bring a variety to the gameplay. You have to check out so many more ships, but also it doesn't feel like the ship's hulls are in large parts either immune to HE, or HE does an over penetration, kind of no damage hit. And also the SKR-7 seem to die faster. I've engaged like 2 of them and they died relatively quickly, which is a good thing. So certain ships will fall out of favor, others will gain favor again. And again, I have to check out some other battle ratings. I have not played any patrol boat so far, so I don't know what's going on with the 40mm Bofors boys, but be sure I'll check it out soon. And this is absolutely something that revives my interest in the gameplay. And not just the Mutsu, you know, the big guns. It's also bringing a new, desperately needed life to lower tier. So, as much as I have good memories on the old footage that you see here, prior to the change in March 2021, Sepp meta isn't quite gone. Because, and this is maybe the best part about it, it's not just a buff to HE but also AP. It also seems like the SAP rounds that are fired in my 5-inch 38s seem to have more effectiveness, and previously they have been drastically nerfed. But again, it's just too few hits that bring you down, and also with certain changes that were not there in the old meta, like the flooding mechanics. If you drop below like 10% crew, that you will inevitably succumb relatively quickly, and also that the certain compartments can be completely destroyed, not just once but for all time to come, and you can't repair your flooding. This wasn't the case in the quote-unquote good old days. So here we are, on the edge of a new meta, the edge of new experience, and I'm looking forward to go through this, to have maybe some ships coming back to life that previously were just not worth playing, and maybe there are some other subtle differences that I haven't noticed yet, where maybe base use HE is weaker or stronger than normal HE given the same amount of TNT in the charge. So that's it for me today. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, give it a subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know in the comment section what your experience so far is. Do you enjoy the new meta? Do you miss the old one? Do you think Gaijin overdid it? And what you think is the correct way? And as usual, we'll see each other on the battlefields, in the skies, and on the waves of War Thunder.